Shalom Yehudim. Chaim Alevsky here, Chabad Family Programs of the West Side. We're going to share a thought that will exercise your mind, and if you're running, your body too. In Parshat Re'eh, in this past week's Parsha, talks about many things, and one of them, it talks about if God will test the Jewish people in various ways. And the pasuk, the verse is Ki menaseh Hashem Elokechem etchem lada'at. God is testing you to find out. Hayishchem ohavim et Hashem Elokechem imlo. Do you really love God or not? So in the Torah it talks about God providing us tests, challenges, opportunities to prove how sincere our relationship is with God. So to dive in a little bit deeper, this is a deep dive into three experiences we have, three kinds of experiences we have in our relationship with the world, one of which is the test. And it goes like this. To give a general overview, in the process of creation, the Zohar, the Kabbalah, teaches us that God created some spiritual worlds in preparation for this physical world, and there was some kind of cosmic explosion where sparks of godly light, of God's light, fell lower and lower and lower, and these lights, these sparks, are invested, they are inside all of our human experiences. Depending on how low these lights, these sparks fell, is our opportunity and ability to interact with them and help them return to their source. So in the mystical world, it's called the world of Biurur, Nitzotzot. Biurur literally means to clarify, and over here it's used also in the context of refining. Nitzotzot means sparks, to clarify or to refine the sparks. And what we're talking about is, in the cosmic plan, the whole world's purpose, in a sense, in our daily interactions with the world, is to return those sparks to where they belong, to elevate those sparks back to their source. So we have that concept of elevating the sparks in the general world. Oftentimes it's translated as tikkun olam. Tikkun olam, fixing the world. And everyone has their own idea about what it takes to fix the world. In the Torah it tells us our unique responsibilities and opportunities on how to fix the world through the 613 mitzvot as Jews and the 7 Noahide laws for the rest of the world, for the general world, the Gentiles, and everyone. So we're not going into all those details today. We're just going to talk about the mystical idea of these sparks coming down into this world and our instructions and our ability and opportunity, responsibility, and also when can we elevate them and how. So, of course, this is a very deep subject that you can spend your life studying. So we're just going to touch upon one aspect that the Rebbe spoke about on Purim 19 Yud-Tes. Yud-Tes is 29. 1959, about 9 years after the Rebbe became Rebbe. And here's somewhat of the story. So we have the sparks coming down into this world. If the sparks come down not too low, then they come down into matters into objects and experiences that we can elevate. We'll call them, they're still in the realm of klipa. Klipa means a shell. It's something that comes down in a way that hides. It's like a shell to a fruit. It hides the godliness within. So it's not readily evident that this is a godly item, although everything is God. And the more something hides, the deeper the klipa, the shell is. The more something hides godliness, the deeper the shell is. The deeper the klipa is, and the harder it is to crack that shell. So things that don't fall too low are able to be elevated. They fall down into items like food that is kosher, like interactions that we have with people and with God. I like to say horizontal, man-to-man kind, and vertical, mankind to God. They fall down into matters and items and interactions that we can interact with and elevate the spark. That's where the sparks that fall down, not too low. So we're able to elevate them. So how do we elevate them? When it comes to any situation, we need to have the proper intent and do the right thing. Food is the easiest example. We take a kosher food, we eat it. Before we eat it, we recite a blessing on it, acknowledging that all food comes from God. And while we eat it with an intent, with a kavana, that this food will give us energy to serve God, to make this world a better place, to do something good. If we have that in place, we just elevated the spark that is within that food, went back up to heaven to its original source, and we just created a tikkun, a fixing for the world, tikkun olam, otherwise known as Birur Nitzotzot, the clarification of these sparks. Now, what happens if the sparks fall lower down? Then they fall into something which in Hebrew is called asur. Asur, translated as forbidden, prohibited, but the actual literal translation means tied. It's bound. It's stuck. It's stuck where it is. It's in a place where it cannot be freed. And that is our perspective on things that we cannot interact with and elevate, like non-kosher food or any non-observance of any law, Shabbat, or interpersonal relationships, whether they're forbidden relationships, forbidden unions, even speaking negative about someone else. Those are all things that they're considered klipa, but klipa, which is the shell, but a deep shell. It's called the Gimble klipa tachmeot. There's 3 levels of deep shells that cannot be elevated, that we're unable to elevate. So we can't go to something not kosher and say, okay, I'm gonna hocus pocus, I'm gonna make you kosher. It doesn't work like that. In our era, in this world, we can't do that. The Torah does tell us that in the times of Mashiach, certain things like that will be elevated, like the pig will be kosher at the time of Mashiach, if you want to eat it. So we're talking about the second level, was the things that are asur, that are forbidden, prohibited, that are bound by the klipa, and we don't have the tools to elevate them. What do we do about those things? Our only instruction is to stay away from them, to avoid them. I like to say avoid them like the plague. Put your mask on and avoid them. Just stay far away, because we can't interact with it in an appropriate way. And if we do, we never know what the outcome will be. We actually ask God to keep us safe from temptations of things that are forbidden to us in our daily prayers. We say, Al tivienu lidei nisayon. Don't bring me to a test. Don't challenge me, God. Because you never know what the future holds. You never know how strong we'll be at that moment. if we'll overcome the temptation or not. So we ask God in our daily prayer, don't test me. I don't want to be tested. It's a wise prayer. Now, says the Rebbe, there's a third level. Third level of our interaction with the world is when God positions us in a place of challenge, in a place of temptation where we didn't try to go there, we tried to avoid it, but it was unavoidable. God put us there, He orchestrated things to happen so that we are placed right there in the right place at the right time, and the temptation is strong or overwhelming for whatever it may be. Again, it may be between man to man, maybe between man to God, maybe a food, maybe a forbidden relationship, maybe anything. What happens then? Says the Rebbe, at that moment, if God puts one in the situation which the temptation is unavoidable and is right there, then God gives us the power, the supernatural power, beyond the power that humans regularly have, to overcome that temptation, that challenge, that test, and to elevate that spark that we cannot otherwise elevate. There is a hidden spark in the temptation itself, in the experience of that God put us into. There's a hidden spark in the experience which elevates us. There's a hidden spark in us that is related to that experience. And there's a hidden spark in that forbidden item that is so low that we yet generally cannot elevate it. But now, because we were placed in a situation in which we have to elevate it, we have to abstain from it, and it takes a lot of effort, and the stronger, the more difficult it is, the greater that spark of light is. Then, at that moment, we actually do have the power to elevate even the forbidden. So whatever it may be in anyone's life, when they are faced with a challenge, that challenges our service to God, whether it be simple food or something else, then at that moment we can elevate it by avoiding it, by abstaining from it. And the greater the challenge, the greater the spark is, and the more God appreciates it. That's the story for today about sparks, all different levels of sparks. A little deep, but you'll find this concept all over the Kabbalah. It's all about sparks. God bless you.